Right. Open the March 5th, 2025 Planning Commission for the City of Norwood. Mrs. Town, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Powers,
Present?
Mayor Schneider,
Present.
Mrs. Signature,
Present.
Mr. Hockney,
Present.
Mr. Sewer.
Present.
Moving on to item B, approve the agenda. We have any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Town, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Powers,
Yes?
Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Signature,
Yes.
Mr. Hockney,
Yes.
Mr. Sewer.
Yes.
Moving to item C, approval of the minutes, February 5th, 2025. Any amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Mrs. Town, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Powers,
Yes?
Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Signature,
Yes.
Mr. Hockney,
Yes.
Mr. Sewer.
Yes.
Moving to item D1, new business. Mick Oakes of PLK representing 4500 Beach LLC, owners of 4500 Beach Street, Norwood, Ohio 45212, is requesting the Planning Commission review the proposed street names for MC North, area of the Factory 52 Phase 2 Townhome Development. Mr. Oakes?
Good afternoon. I'm going to see if I can try to throw it up on the screen through AirPlay, but if that doesn't work, I believe everyone has a exhibit of the proposed street names and the addresses to talk through. So we talked high level. These are all card back names. I do not have all the history behind the card backs for the bicycle cards. But they are USPC bicycle card back names. That was the inspiration for Cupid, Aviator, Aristocrat, Lantern. And in addition to that, we went ahead and proposed the addressing for each of these townhome units, as well as the multicolor building plan for the multicolor north proper parcel. This is what we, in collaboration with the building department, obviously we want to be in compliance with commission as well as the fire department, ensuring that these addressing is done safe and effectively. So this was our proposition. Would be happy to answer any questions on how we came up with this layouts and configuration, and would be happy to answer any questions regarding it.
Questions from the commissioners?
I'm just thoroughly disappointed you don't have the history of all these different. It is interesting that and Ralph mentioned that Canteen were the cards that were World War II cards that had maps inside of them. That's pretty interesting. So I'm sure there's a lot of other stuff here. I don't really have any questions.
You have one error though. You had 2919, 2819
That's on Kenilworth.
on Kenilworth.
Yes, 2819.
Yes.
Typo. The one thing we did, I did not give an address to the parking garages shown on Cupid. That's something we can open up here if that needs to be addressed, or if it's a structure, but will not be anything arriving to or from that. So I left that blank. I didn't know if the commission had any comments on that.
I would ask for Chief McCabe to make a comment if he has one.
So typically anything that will have any fire suppression to it or alarm system will be required to have an address of some sort, so that when the notifier comes in through the dispatch, it actually dispatches us to a known address.
Okay.
It can be the same address as a building if it's an attached structure. That's not an issue, but if it's a standalone structure, and not knowing the size of the structure, it may not be required to have fire protection. That just depends. So,
It's just garages.
some garages are required to have.
Yeah, there's not enough there to have a
Okay.
fire suppression system in it.
Yes, sir.
But then if you were directing someone where to park, if there's no address number to that, how do you do a Google search to maybe that parking garage?
Well, it's privately owned, aren't they?
Yes, so they're 8 single parking garages for the 8 units that are above the multicolor building
Single.
proper. Single,
Oh.
yes. So for each apartment unit, the resident will have their own parking garage.
Okay.
Where are the residents located for these?
On the 3rd and 4th floor of the multicolor building, so that's 4510, the existing multicolor that's currently there.
Thank you. Chief, based on the fact that these garages are attached to the residents who live at 4510, is that an appropriate address?
They're standalone buildings. Since they're privately owned, we would probably want an address for those because they're cars parking out. We get a dispatch for car fire in that area. We probably want that building to be numbered.
Do you want it individually, each one of those individually, or just one?
No, I think just attaching an address to that building itself would be sufficient. Since they're attached, if we have one car fire, we're gonna have a building fire basically inside that, so.
So are you saying it could be 4510A, 4510B, 4510?
It certainly could. I don't, you could number it 4510 if you wanted to in the garage space. I just don't know, since it's a standalone, it's off to the side of the, I guess, what looks like the pool. My suggestion would be to actually give it its own separate address for that building.
Carrie, can we give that off a give it a Cupid address?
I'm okay with that, but at this point, it's a blank slate, so Chief,
Right.
what would make more sense for emergency dispatch, Cupid or Aristocrat?
And so, the other question I have is about the streets in terms of are they actual streets, are they alleyways, are we defining?
Actual streets.
I'm sorry?
They're actual streets.
They're actual
Your
streets.
fire equipment could get down. We had that.
So I don't believe 20 feet is an adequate width for a dedicated street.
These would not be dedicated. They would be private streets.
So private streets. So, okay. 20 feet wide, no parking. The average jack length of the ladder truck right now is almost 18 and a half. So there's, as long as there's nothing there. Does the city have a defined street spec for private versus public?
No, we just have it's in our ordinance, the size of the streets.
So then it would become subject to the fire code for access. Okay. All right.
We went through this with Brody.
Sure, we want to make sure. It's, the issue that we have specifically is those structures on Lantern that's the only access that the fire department has. That'd be my main concern with those. Other ones, like Robertson, we've planned access to the structures from Robertson. Kenilworth are fine. Aviator, we would prefer that, there's no boulevard there, especially with allowable parking on that boulevard. It's just, you're talking about really tight areas for fire protection, but I know we're talking about addresses. So.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Right.
We've been this route through Brody, we've had these conversations, it's gonna be tight. At Dan Land.
Okay, so back to these addresses, are we talking about giving them addresses like 2814, 2816, 2818, 2820 Cupid? Ralph, that's really a question to you.
Oh, like I say, it's a blank slate, we can give it whatever we want, call that whole building. 1,000 Cupid if you wanted to.
Ralph, the buildings in red on Lantern,
Yeah.
are the proposed addresses for Lantern or Aristocrat?
Carrie, you may be able to,
So
or
this is-
Nick may be able to answer that, because I'm sort of,
Yeah,
so you've used 46, the number's 46 through.
so when we initially proposed these, we did not have the Lantern or Cupid proposed at the time. The 7 or 8 townhomes that are shown in red, we had initially given them Aristocrat and are currently Aristocrat addresses are proposed. The reason why we did that is because Lantern, the front of these townhomes face where the pool is, so it's really not facing a street. So that's why we went with the Aristocrat. We can certainly give them Lantern addresses and just follow the 2700 But for the time being proposed, they were Aristocrat.
They should follow the same as Robertson and Kenilworth addresses, not, they should be the 2700 in that area, because that's not the way addressing happens.
Right.
So those will be 2,700 each
Yeah,
month.
and they
I mean,
would
Robertson.
start at 2706, or not 27, it's 2705.
2705 Lantern.
And then 2707, and it'll
Right.
go across
Those
from
be
there
odd numbers.
for those. What are we saying, 7?
Yeah,
9,
7, 9.
The 7 on Lantern should be 2705, 2707, 2709, and so on, right?
Correct, up through 2717.
2705 to 2717 Lantern.
Yeah. And the ones on Cupid, which are just the parking structures, I think should be 2814, 2816, 2818 Cupid. Have specific addresses.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they change from 7s to 8s? It should still be 27s,
On Cupid,
because you change
oh,
the numbers as you go up. So in the next block on Robertson, it would be 2800. You don't change the numbers as you go north. You change them as you go east and west. The blocks change. For example, Montgomery Road, we're 4645. The block south of us is 45 something. The block north of us is 47.
Correct.
You wouldn't change it to 28 going north. It should stay 27 all the way across in line.
okay, well then, you're saying this whole document is not correct.
I am, since I just,
So, if I may, Carrie, the only reason why we jump from, if you look at the bottom right, the 2724 on Robertson, if you go up 2 blockings of townhomes, that should have the same, it would be 2724 Aviator and a 2724 Robertson?
and there's 5117 Globe and 5117 Hunter and 5117 Ralston, and that's typically the way addressing goes. I apologize, sir. I just got back at lunch. I didn't see this. So
That confuses the whole thing. Okay, it's a whole different discussion.
if you were to change numbering at the blocks, it would go, but across the street it doesn't. But if you were changing it at blocks, it would add Aristocrat when you cross over. It's not necessary in this case because we've got a full block on Robertson to carry it all the way up. But you don't change
What are the house numbers directly across from Robertson?
directly across from Robertson are 2701, 2703.
Okay, so that seems correct.
That's where we started. And
But
it,
then you're saying north of that on Cupid, well, you're saying that should all be,
I'm saying it could possibly go to 28 when you cross Aristocrat, but on Cupid, it should stay the same. 2700 block to the east side would be 2700. It should always stay the same. I mean, whatever our address is in the house we live, the street behind us has the exact same address. The streets in
Right.
front of us have the exact same addresses.
And as we go north to south on this map, it's changing from 2700 to 2800.
Right.
It should not be.
It should not be.
So excluding the 4,500 addresses, every single townhome should start with the 2,700.
Yes, sir. And it would be the same block of numbers because they're directly behind each other and in front of each other.
Shifting from odd, even, and so on.
This is gonna make a big difference to the guy delivering pizzas. So,
It's gonna make a big difference to the man driving the fire truck. and
now
the
their
police
stuff's all
department,
computer.
police
It
department.
tells, it's a dot. They're following a dot.
Well, why
Yeah.
can't they just have 2,700 on land and 2,800 depending on
Because that's not the way, that's not, go ahead, Chief.
It's fine, so the city is up to line at blocks. And so the blocks would be equivalent in terms of, like anything across the river, it started two times. One east west. Same thing, if you got east west address, there shouldn't be, if I'm crossing where it's at, I should know that I'm in the 2,800 block. Or the, whatever block, doesn't matter. But it should be either 27 or 28. Every time we cross over a block, we remain constant. For any of those addresses, we want to east west.
So simply, you are saying that on Cupid, these should all be 2,700 numbers. And that's pretty much it,
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
which is fairly simple to correct on here and move forward.
Correct.
Okay, let's do that.
And then change an aviator as well to 2,700.
Yeah, we would have all addresses begin with 27.
Okay.
There's really not addresses on Aviator.
They're on Cupid,
They're on Cupid.
They're on Cupid or on Lantern.
right.
They're in green.
And are we writing that down and then the commission is passing that?
There's one other issue I want to bring up. If those addresses are on Cupid.
Chief, will you please come to the microphone?
So keep in mind that if we have addresses on Cupid and Kenilworth, or do we have just addresses on Cupid? Because the way this looks like to me, in terms of the way things are numbered, Aviator, take for example, on the streets going east-west, those residences that are on the south side of the street would be on the odd number, and the residences on the north side of that street would be the even numbers. So the way this looks to me, Aviator would have residences correctly marked right now.
There are no residences on Aviator.
Okay, so then we have a numbering issue then.
They are.
They're on Cupid.
They're on, in between Lantern
So it
and
looks,
Aviator. Those houses face Aviator.
so there appears to be a layer that was turned off from what was sent in. Green is showing over Aviator. So the two blockings of houses or townhouses to the north and south of where Aviator is shown, the front of those townhomes exit to Aviator. That's what we are showing on this map. It looks like the green layer was mistakenly turned off. This one has the corrected version of it. So,
Need credit on screen? Can we get that on the screen so we can
yeah.
plug it into your computer and I see you writing fresh. Curious. Put the numbers on there.
I think we'll split this into two motions. The lawyer said he's going to split it.
So, I don't know if it's easier if I can pass this around, someone can look at the green section of it, but where, on your documentations that you have, Aviator, the north and the south townhomes, those were given an Aviator address. Cupid and Lantern, before this morning, we had not given those, there's no buildings fronting either of those streets or alleyways. So the only townhomes that should have any addresses on them is Kenilworth, Aviator, Robertson, and now Lantern, that we have given these 7 or 8 townhomes that were previously Aristocrats. So Chief, I don't know if that answers your question, but
I see them putting them on Aviator. If they have an Aviator address, what's gonna happen is those streets aren't wide enough for the trucks to come down. At least Cupid and Lantern, your trucks go down. There's only 13 feet between the car, from the middle up to the,
so then the preference would be to give them a Cupid and a Lantern address.
I would think so, because
Yeah, I don't know that I agree with that one. So are they accessing the driveways from Cupid? Are they going in the garages from Cupid?
Correct.
So that is clearly the back of the building.
Correct.
And I think you would have Aviator, I think the way the chief was looking at it, they're Aviator addresses, and they probably should state Aviator addresses. If we have Aviator addresses and that's the front, granted, on the back of it, it's very easy to say, you guys need to mark on the back of these over the garage what the number is.
Correct.
And then you go from there. Now, the
that
question,
poses a problem.
yes, what's that?
Is if they're on Aviator, chief can't, if there's a fire and it's on Aviator, their trucks can't come down Aviator. It's not wide enough.
The fire department can get to any building here. And they will know, what the fire department does in the time that they have is they look at where they're going to run to and they say, if it's on Aviator, this is where they run to. I don't agree with that. I mean, I understand what you are saying, but if I'm a paramedic in the city of Norwood and I get a call to go to Aviator and I don't know where to go to get to that house on Aviator, there's a problem. It's a 3 square mile city. The firefighters better know this area.
Well, and that's fine if the chief is okay with it. I'm just pointing out that if it's on Aviator and one of the drivers wants to go down Aviator, says it's Aviator, here's the street and that's where the computer is pointing to, he can't get his truck down.
There is some access concerns from the fire department standpoint regarding that Aviator. I would caution having addresses of buildings at the front of the street that we can't access. Well, yes, we can access the back of it, and it's the absolute minimum width of a street per fire code. If we have a fire in those buildings, we really need to have hose access to the front of those buildings because their access is fairly limited from the rear.
Mick, what is in the middle of Aviator? I don't have the green showing of what your stuff
That's an
is.
island.
Yeah, so apologies, of course, it pulls up on the further screen. So this is an island, some landscaping in the middle.
And there's parking along the fronts of these homes. That would be parallel parking.
That's
And
correct.
The total width of this is 15 feet, so if somebody parks a 10-foot wide car there will be a 5-foot lane there.
I'm showing, yes, correct. On either side, it would be, no, sir, 36 total foot width, excluding the parking on either side.
So there's a 13-foot driving lane.
Correct.
And on Cupid and on Lantern, there's a 20-foot driving lane.
That's correct.
If I was the developer, and I'm not, but if I was in business of looking at this, I would much rather be selling homes on Aviator than the homes on Lantern or Cupid. The Aviator homes, because of the way the way that this development is made, would, in my opinion, be more desirable than a home on Cupid. I would, if I was the developer, I'd be saying, no, I want addresses on Aviator. Now, you can tell me if I'm wrong, Mac, but that's how I would look at it.
No, sir, that's what we are proposing currently.
The only change I would like to see made would be maybe Carrie's suggestion, which is the homes on Cupid that are listed as 2,800 would also be 2,700 numbers. The change would be 2,700 numbers. So on that first block of Cupid between Beach and Aristocrat, that 2,803 would end up being 2,703 down to the end of that to Aristocrat would be 2,719.
Those are Kenilworth addresses that you're talking about, but they still should be 27, and that should be the addresses. You're
Okay.
correct. And then on the Aviator, between Aviator and Cupid, those should also run with 2,700.
So they're looking at this, there are no addresses on Cupid.
Correct.
None,
Correct.
correct? And there are no addresses on Lantern.
There will be addresses on Lantern because they don't have a street frontage to the front of the buildings, the townhomes. The original proposal was to give them addresses on Aristocrat with 4-digit numbers, which is not appropriate at all. Because there's no entrance into the building, you can't get to all of the units from Aristocrat. You can only get to the units from the back of the buildings on Lantern.
There would also be addresses on Cupid for the garages.
And there could be addresses on, there should be an address on Cupid for that building. I don't know that individuals are necessary, but that's up to you guys.
Are there buildings fronting Robertson
Yes,
in this
sir.
diagram that we're looking at?
Yes,
Are
sir.
there addresses that would coincide with the Robertson addresses?
Those are correct
All
addresses.
across the bottom. So that's all fine and dandy.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're saying, the question that you're discussing right now is the 7 townhouses that are currently listed as Aristocrat addresses.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, what should those numbers be?
For safety's sake and for lack of, to not create more confusion, I would give them 2,700 addresses on Lantern because that's the only way you can access each individual townhome.
Do they front? Do they front Lantern or do they front?
The pool.
They front the pool.
Okay.
So
I agree with what your recommendation would be on those, which they would be, you're saying they would be 2704 through 2716.
No, I'm saying they would be 2707 through whatever the corresponding
Okay, to
odd
make them odd
number
numbers.
is.
Okay. That makes sense.
For Lantern, those are even. Their Lantern address is even. Even though it's the rear of the structure, it's on the north side of Lantern.
Okay,
So I was right originally.
okay.
Sorry, I should have
Okay. What did we decide the first number should be then, sir? So 2706. Thank you. 6, okay.
No, you can't have 2706 is on Robertson.
That's okay. This one's going to be 2706 Lantern.
Okay.
Because they're on the north side of the street.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
He caught me,
Okay.
So the garages on Cupid should be odd numbered.
correct.
Clear as mud.
Clear as mud.
Okay, I think the easiest way to do this, because we have a lot of streets and a lot of numbers, is take these couple of motions at a time here. So I'll start, and I think we can kind of run through this. Make a motion to approve the addresses on Beach as shown.
I'll second that motion.
Mrs. Town, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Powers,
Yes.
Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Sickinger,
Yes.
Mr. Hockney,
Yes.
Mr. Sewer.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve the addresses on Robertson as shown. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Town, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Powers,
Yes.
Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Sickinger,
Yes.
Mr. Hockney,
Yes.
Mr. Sewer.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve the addresses on Kenilworth, making the substitution of 27 for the first two digits in each address, otherwise as shown.
I will second that motion.
Mrs. Town, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Powers,
Yes.
Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Sickinger,
Yes.
Mr. Hockney,
Yes.
Mr. Sewer.
Yes.
Okay, now to the hard part. Make a motion to assign the addresses 2706, 2708, 2710, 2712, 2714, 2716, and 2718 to the four townhomes, or the townhomes on Lantern.
7 townhomes on land.
Correct.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Mrs. Town, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Powers,
Yes.
Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Sickinger,
Yes.
Mr. Hockney,
Yes.
Mr. Sewer.
Yes.
Make a motion to assign the addresses to the 8 garages on Cupid as 2713, 2715, 2717, 2719, 2721, 2723, 2725, and 2727.
Cupid.
Cupid.
Cupid. I would second that motion.
Mrs. Town, please call the roll.
Chairman Powers,
Yes.
Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Sickinger,
Yes.
Mr. Hockney,
Yes.
Mr. Sewer.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to assign the addresses on Aviator as shown, substituting the digits 27 for the first two digits for the townhomes located on the north of Aviator.
Chairman, may I ask a question before the question's posed to the group?
Yes.
This will be a first that we have addresses assigned up front of the buildings that the fire department can't access. Is that going to be something to take under consideration during this? It's something to consider. We don't have that in Norwood. Every address we have fronts are we have accessibility to those that are fronted addresses. So if the way this current design is set up, we don't have access.
I would say duly noted. That's about it. I think the addresses as stated are right.
Is there a second to the motion?
I will second that motion.
Mrs. Town, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Powers,
Yes.
Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Sickinger,
Yes.
Mr. Hockney,
Yes.
Mr. Sewer.
Yes.
Did we miss any? I think that was everything.
Did we correct the ones on Kenilworth?
They were
Kenilworth.
changed to substitute 27 for the first two
The whole
digits.
thing? Right, Kenilworth changed, okay. I think we've corrected all of them.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Moving to item D2, review of a draft ordinance amending Part 11, Planning and Zoning Code relating to dispensaries for medical and recreational marijuana and any products that contain THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, and CBD, cannabinol, or its derivatives to promote clarity and consistency in policy interpretation and by directing these types of retail businesses, establishments to appropriate locations and other related changes. Mr. Wolf?
Yes, in front of you is an ordinance that I drafted up, but we did not have anything in our ordinance referencing a dispensary or the old cannabis. I have written it up through, and it's a draft format for your input. I do not want to have it discussed in this meeting because there's going to be one review, we have a quorum. And if we make any changes, it becomes law then. So what I would like each one of you to do is to look it over, email me your comments. I can send it to you electronically if you want, and we could go from there, and then we could, I could import all your comments into the final draft. Is that acceptable with the brother?
Questions, concerns?
Well, I'm concerned with us, you're saying we as a planning commission are going to make law?
Well, we're making an ordinance, or reviewing an ordinance.
We don't have the ability to make laws as a planning.
Right, okay, excuse me, but we're reviewing an ordinance that will go to council.
Right, would be recommended to council.
But three of you, but there's five of you up here, and three of you make a quorum, so any conversations that happen here can be construed as changes to this without giving individual comments.
If I may, it's not a public hearing. We've not notified this as a public hearing. It's just for you guys to review and submit comments back to him individually through email so he can incorporate your thoughts on it. When you're ready for a public hearing, I'll notify it and then you can talk about it as a group. That's why he's saying it that way. Not law, but changes to the zoning code is what he's looking for, I think.
Other questions, concerns?
Your thinking, Mr. Mayor.
I'm thinking that the planning commission does just that on a regular basis. In the planning commission meetings, we look at draft ordinances, we discuss them, we look at challenges to that, and then we would ask for changes to be made before it was for a public hearing. We would request that public hearing and then move forward. But you're saying it's not the right way that you'd like to see this completed. And, okay.
I think that we can have that discussion. We can't advance it as a recommendation to council until we have that public hearing.
Right.
So I
That's
think you and I are on the same
Avoid
page.
any possibility of someone saying you had a quorum.
I think,
This
You're
discussion,
correct.
even though it's a discussion of it.
yeah,
I'm just looking at it from the legal standpoint.
we are able to discuss it, but we're not able to advance it without that public hearing.
Right. So if you want to discuss it, that's fine. Everyone's read it.
So
Would we like to have additional discussion or provide comments back to Mr. Wolf for our next meeting?
so if we do this, we're saying we have discussion now, but we can't say we want this to go to, we have a public hearing at the next meeting. We've got to wait until all the discussion and all the stuff goes to Mr. Wolf. Then he'll bring it to the next meeting. Then we can actually advance it to a public hearing, which would then be scheduled for a couple of months out. And then at that, so we can't even schedule a public hearing for this?
You can schedule a public hearing today if you'd like.
Okay.
You can have it at your next meeting if you'd like. I can get it notified then.
Okay.
If you're ready, most of the time you guys do that right before you're ready to advance it, though.
Believe it. So, most of them.
Discussion? You can be that. I'm just trying to keep it simple, that's all. I was trying to go, we waited this long, I was trying to put something out there to you guys, to the board, and move forward, and if it takes, if you want to schedule it next month or a month after, that's fine too. I just, in propriety, that's what I'm looking for, I don't want anything to happen.
Discussion?
I really don't have any discussion on that. I mean, the big issue in here that I saw was the new definition being added. And then everything wrapped around that, Ralph, as far as
Correct.
dispensary. So to me, as we went through this in zoning, we didn't have any definitions for the dispensary.
Correct.
And then it was declared a pharmacy.
That's correct.
So, I think that it's good to add that definition. But as far as other things, I just think grandfathering, how does that fit in this? It's not really a question for this group. I just was curious. Are all the dispensaries over a mile already? I don't know.
Yeah.
There are 2 and they are over a mile.
They are over a mile.
Yes.
Okay. Just as you were writing this, Ralph, how is this enforced? I mean, who goes in and measures 51% of the items on the shelves have to do with?
The only way to enforce that is literally books, having someone go in and look at their books.
Okay.
But this is a similar ordinance that was set up for the vape shops. And how do you monitor the vape shops? The one thing that's in there is in green that's kind of interesting for the vape shops. And it came from the mayor, because he's looked at this earlier on page 2 of 5, dealing with the synthetic cannabis. Because the synthetic cannabis is what's inside of the vapes that they're selling in the vape stores, from my understanding. So that's going to affect them more than anything else. And it's putting it into these 2 facilities.
Mr. Skelly?
With regards to the question for the 51% available floor area, I think you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but when you receive a change of use permit, you typically get a building or floor plan.
Right.
So to me, either that or with regards to your specific question, Mark Reeves could go, most smartphones have a little gadget for doing the area, you can just quickly do it. So it shouldn't be that difficult.
The area is one thing, the income is a whole nother thing.
Correct.
I mean, we just talk about it sometimes in here, saying, who will now enforce this? Because it's not us.
Right. The only thing we're gonna have to rely on them too, but maybe there's an ordinance out there or some rules that they have to start submitting documentation, the income and everything else. And I think they do that in the tax. So,
But that's not in here.
no,
That would
but we
follow-
could ask
Okay.
the tax department.
That seems to make some sense. If that would be in the tax department, say they have to submit on an annual basis at year end. I'm kind of sensitive to the fact that I know that you folks here in Norwood, you don't have unlimited funds per se. And we pass these things and
Yeah, we want to make sure they're enforceable.
are they enforceable?
Well, like I said, like you said, it's a definition. We don't have a definition, and that's in
Need the
here
definition,
now.
Ralph. You're right.
And that's a big thing, because without definitions, we can't hang our hat on it. All we can do is go through our current definitions and say, okay, well, it can fit into this category, but, and then all of a sudden Tim gets involved because it goes to a court, and someone's going to contest it. So all I'm trying to do is close some loopholes, that's all.
So no, I'm going to come back and ask, we all had this to read it. I don't have any strong feelings either way. I mean, I didn't do the research. I don't really deal with this. I have never been in a vape shop, so, but I don't have anything against it. It seems like we often approve a draft that goes to council, and there's 9 council members, they usually have an opinion. You know, probably often it's kicked back to us. So, why don't we keep this going?
And we can.
Not until you have a public hearing.
Okay, now you've answered the question. And the fastest we could have that is the next month.
That's correct. We could advance it to a public hearing at the next meeting.
I guess now you just summarized where I feel like we are.
Okay.
Or I am. I don't want to speak for the board.
But I would like to get other people's comments because
Sure.
right now I know I only have 2 people's comments and there's 5 of you up there. So if you don't have any comments, that's great. If you do, let me know so I can put it in here. And then if you wanted to recirculate, then we're at a public hearing.
I have more comments, but I'm waiting for other.
Go for it.
I think Bernie brings up a good point of the enforcement part of it. That doesn't, and I think that you brought up a good point of, does the Treasury, are there some sort of reports that they report to the Treasury that are required? And can that be,
I would have to do some investigating on
and
that.
can that be added into this prior to us advancing it? Can that be added into this? Who is doing enforcement? I mean, I look at this and, okay, well, this is a zoning thing, so is the building department enforcing this? Well, I don't know that the building department has the capabilities of enforcing.
We could do, like Mike said, was when they submit it, we'll get a floor plan of what's in there, it'll have casework, so we could check for ADA and all of that, so we could see what's there and figure out a percentage and say, yeah, it's 51% or whatever percentage of it is. And then when they're finished and they open up, we can check that.
But I would say just as a fact of light here, that typically these sort of developments don't end up being 52% sales in this area. They tend to be way over 50%. You know, they're a lot more like almost everything is this product, and maybe they sell some bottles of water and pop while you're there too. So while we do have to put some kind of threshold in there, some kind of definition, I don't think that the 51% is going to be a calculation that we've got to do a lot of math on.
And like I said, this is not a replica, but I copied a lot of it from the vape shops. How are we doing it on the vape shops? I don't know the answer to that.
Can I throw a question at the system law director?
Throw it away.
Tim, when we talk about enforcement of the dispensaries, they have dispensary licensed, they have to become licensed by the state of Ohio. Are you aware of any requirements, annual reporting requirements from the dispensaries to the state? I know when we accepted having dispensaries in the city of Norwood, we had said they're regulated much like a pharmacy is regulated. And pharmacies have all sorts of regulations on how they work. Are you aware of any of how that structure is in place for the state?
No, I'm not, but I gotta admit, I don't know the state law at all.
Pertaining to dispensaries.
Pertaining.
I know you know the state law pretty dang good.
Yeah,
Pertaining to dispensaries. Okay.
right,
But there
I'm
is-
sorry, I wasn't.
To answer a little bit here, trying to bring it up, the state is going to be getting rid of their definition of a pharmacy for medical marijuana. Because it's no longer just medical marijuana, it's recreational marijuana as well. So I'm trying to, if they're going to get rid of that definition, we need to put something in our causes to deal with that.
So are they carving regular pharmacies out different than a dispensary? Because you
Pharmacy
have,
will be pharmacies like you know it.
but pharmacies also have a THC derivative that they use, Marinol.
Yeah, but that'll be totally different. That's regulated under pharmaceuticals. But now they can get rid of it for medical marijuana. Cost is no medical, there's going to be medical marijuana and recreational marijuana at the same facility. Before, it was just medical marijuana, so they classified it as a dispensary / semi-pharmacy. But now they're combining it all, so it's
Total separate carve
it's totally separate, so, and that intrigued me when they were gonna get rid of it. I said, when I read that, I said, we have to put something in place to hold their hand there for that, basically.
Mr. Skelly?
Yeah, to me, that's really important because I had some bunch of questions and comments that I wrote up. That was the first major one because to me, as was discussed, we were treating medicinal marijuana as a permitted by right use. And the question I had for anyone was, is there almost a preemption for the state that no, you have to treat this with special regard? The adult marijuana recreational is a different kettle of fish. But if that's going away, then yeah, you really need something to regulate because they're almost the same type thing. Because the medicinal is irrelevant. It's all going to be almost like retail marijuana.
Right.
So that was like, I think the first one of the 11 ones I had questions about.
Further
Don't you
discussion?
still need the whole doctor thing? I mean, to get the medicinal? I thought you did.
To get medicinal.
To get medicinal.
The recreational.
I mean, the recreational and medicinal are still different.
Yes, they are.
And
Yes, but they're served at the same facility.
Yeah, that's
So
correct.
when you come in there, from my understanding, you come in there with your doctor note basically saying, here's what I need. It's a different grade of marijuana. Recreational is not going to be that high. supposedly.
I'm reacting, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm.
Michael's saying they're
research
saying,
into
no, they're
this, but-
still being treated differently, and I'm surprised the state doesn't have something like this. They keep passing these rules that you would think something would be attached to it.
Well,
Well, I think the rule was anybody that's met the medicinal bar also meets the recreational bar, and that's their temporary fix.
Okay,
Okay, I think this is a good idea, really good idea. For in terms of distance, if that's what the planning commission thinks ought to happen, council thinks ought to happen.
Further discussion? Would anyone like to offer a motion?
I would like to make a motion, but I also, Bernie brought up a good point, enforcement of it, and how that's an important aspect of it. Now, maybe we could, like, you know, that you hate to use the words half-baked, but is this half-baked? And I make a motion that we send it on, that we have the public hearing, and that potentially we then send it on to council for consideration, and then they're going to finish this, they're going to wrap this up and pass it as of the law of the land. I mean, my concern would be that it needs more clarification, and we maybe take those actions next month after Ralph and all of us have had a chance to do a little bit more research and make sure we're moving forward in the best direction. And sending basically something that's well thought out to city council before it goes in front of the 7 council members that then either put it in committee or recognize it and move forward.
So you just want to keep it on the agenda?
I think that would be a motion to table.
Yes, my motion would be to table it until next meeting.
And I would be comfortable second.
Mrs. Town, would you please call the roll?
Second? Thank you. Chairman Powers,
Yes.
Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Sickinger,
Yes.
Mr. Hockney,
Yes,
Mr. Sewer.
yes.
Moving on to item D3, process of public notices for public hearings. I requested this item be added to the agenda. Primarily, just want to make the other commissioners aware of a change in state law that I would like to see us take advantage of and offer an opportunity for any comment, questions, concerns. So during the previous state budget, a public notice website was created for the state of Ohio. The public notice website is free to use, and the city is eligible to advertise all public notices that we're required to advertise, including our public hearings on that, rather than paying for advertisement through the Inquirer or another local newspaper. That can result in tens of thousands of dollars in savings to the city. And so I would like to start moving the Planning Commission and other public notices from the city in that direction where I'm able to do that. And so I wanted to offer you all an opportunity to ask any questions about that, offer any comments before I start steering us that way.
I would say that makes it excellent, especially since the readers of paper newspapers and even digital have gone way down. Does this replace the notifications then also? Or is it still, we still have
He's
to
asking about
notify?
the neighborhood notification.
No, it would not replace
Okay,
that.
this is strictly.
This is strictly
Okay.
the advertisement that we place in the newspaper.
And it's actually in the zoning code, so it's something for planning commission and for Board of Zoning Appeals.
We-
It's something you guys would make recommendation on.
Yeah, we'll need to make a change to the actual code because it does currently specify that we do this in a newspaper. So
Right.
if everybody is comfortable moving away from that, we'll work on making an amendment. I saw you both raise your hands at
Yeah,
once.
go
so-
ahead. You-
Yeah, I was just more curious, I'm not that familiar with Ohio law, but does it have any caveat where it says of a local circulation or anything about it?
Yeah.
That's the first question.
Previously, that was what the law was, is that you had to advertise in a newspaper of
I've seen
local
that a lot with
circulation.
State law. where-
General circulation is what it's
Correct, yeah. And
Um,
then the second question is, would you get, would the city get a proof of publication then?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And so it basically, because this change has come about because, exactly as Mr. Sewer said, the readership of the papers has gone down. And where people are reading the paper, they're reading it online, which is where the same public notice website is. So we want to make sure that the public is aware that we're going to be making a change like that so they know where to look for these public notices. So I wanted to raise that here first, get it out there.
It's like, what, $700 per?
It depends.
Depends on the college.
By the line, yeah.
Both
It-
Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals have had $1,100 newspaper ads.
Yeah, the city currently is spending tens of thousands of dollars a year on this, and we're able to move this to cost of zero.
On a Clerk Avenue, I'm hoping that it goes all the way across council, health department, whoever has that language, that they can, you guys can figure that out.
Mr. Wolf?
I would recommend that instead of going cold turkey, we go out a couple of months doing it both ways, and then go off of the newspaper. So it goes both ways.
Well, maybe something we ought to do is take an ad out in the newspaper and announce that we're using the public notice website.
Yeah, or something just so people know. And
Yeah, and that's part of why I wanted to raise it before I came in here with an ordinance and asked everybody to support that so that we kind of start getting that knowledge out there in the community. So the accessibility will generally be the same as it is now, unless you are one of the folks who's picking that up in a print format and looking through it. But the number of people doing that is definitely gone down dramatically.
Do we still advertise as a public station then too? Do we still do,
I
the
think-
people that come here, where do they get their notification that there's a?
The majority of the folks who are showing up at Planning Commission are showing up because they received a postcard. That's my belief about it. I've not
I've
done
never
it.
asked.
Posting positions around the city.
There are,
Not
that's,
Planning Commission, not Board of Zoning Appeals. We post to a newspaper of general publication. We post not by law, but because it's convenient for some who have cable, Norwood cable access. We ask them to post it and they do. And if it's a public hearing, we send it to a public hearing that requires, we send it to either the abutting neighbors or neighbors within 200 feet. There are some things that are public hearings, like language changes, that we don't have to do that on. But we also have a place down outside of City Hall that things can be posted, but that's not something that is done for your board on a regular basis. I apologize. But I don't know where else you would post it.
Used to be posted at the library, at the community center. There were 5 different locations
For council?
for council meetings and any public meeting. It's not, it doesn't hold true anymore. Apparently something changed in the last 25 years, but, okay. Do you need something from us?
Just a general feeling of whether or not that's something that we would like to have brought back at a future meeting. Looks like yes. Okay. We will move to item E, old business. We have none. Item F, excuse absent members. We have none, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
They all want to stay.
No one wants to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Town, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Cole,
Yes.
Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Sickinger,
Yes.
Mr. Hockney,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes. We are adjourned at 4:32. Thank you, everyone.